Millionaire loses an $8 to-be company and falls into despair until a 6-year-old orphan girl makes a proposal that breaks his heart and changes his life forever. Before we reveal this heart-rending story of solitude and sorrow, share where you're watching from and subscribe for more moving tales. The mahogany doors of Harrison Steel Industries burst open as federal agents carried out boxes of evidence, while news crews swarmed the sidewalk like hungry wolves. Marcus Harrison, 42, stood frozen across the street, watching 23 years of blood, sweat, and dreams crumble into dust. His $2 billion empire gone in 72 hours. Mr. Harrison, any comment on the embezzlement charges? Reporters thrust microphones toward his face as camera flashes exploded around him. Marcus pushed through the mob, his usually pristine Armani suit wrinkled and stained with coffee from his sleepless nights. The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss. Richard Castellanos, his childhood friend, his trusted CFO, the man who'd been best man at his wedding, had vanished to the Cayman Islands with nearly $2 billion in company funds. 20 years of friendship destroyed by greed. Marcus's phone buzzed incessantly. Angry investors, panicked board members, ruthless creditors circling like vultures. He turned it off and drove aimlessly through downtown Seattle, rain hammering his Bentley's windshield. The FBI had frozen his personal accounts. His wife Jennifer had filed for divorce that morning, taking their twin daughters to her mother's house in Vancouver. Everything he'd worked for, everyone he'd loved, gone. The mansion would be seized next week. The yacht, the vacation homes, the art collection, all of it would be auctioned to pay creditors. Marcus Harrison, once featured on Forbes's cover as Seattle's Steel King, was now facing bankruptcy and possible prison time. He parked near Pike Place Market, needing air to breathe, space to think. The rain soaked through his expensive jacket as he wandered the narrow alley behind the market, past overflowing dumpsters and puddles reflecting neon signs. That's when he heard it, a soft whimper coming from between two dumpsters. In a soggy cardboard box that once held bananas sat the most heartbreaking sight Marcus had ever seen. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, with matted blonde hair and eyes like precious sapphires. She wore a torn pink dress, 3 sizes too big, and clutched a stuffed rabbit missing an ear. Despite the cold rain soaking through the cardboard, she wasn't crying, just sitting there with a dignity that broke Marcus's heart. When she looked up at him, those innocent blue eyes seemed to see straight through to his soul. "Are you an angel?" she whispered, her voice trembling from cold and hunger. "Mama said angels come when people need them most, and I've been praying really hard." Marcus knelt beside the box, his knees touching the wet pavement. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma Collins," she said softly. "I'm 6 3/4 years old. I've been waiting here for someone special to find me." She tilted her head, studying his face with those impossibly wise eyes. "Are you the man who lost all his money on TV?" The question stunned Marcus. "How do you know about that?" Emma struggled to stand in the cramped box, her tiny frame shaking. "I heard the mean reporters talking about Harrison Steel. They said you lost everything because someone you trusted stole your money." She stepped closer, her small hand reaching toward his. "But I can help you get it all back." "Emma, where are your parents?" Fresh tears mixed with raindrops on her cheeks. "Mama went to heaven last month. She got really sick with cancer. The foster people were mean. They said I was weird because I'm good with numbers. So I ran away." She looked up at him with desperate hope. "If you give me a real home with a bed and food, I promise I'll save your company. I already figured out where your stolen money is hiding." Marcus stared at this extraordinary child, wondering if grief and stress had finally driven him insane. Marcus gently lifted Emma from the cardboard box, shocked at how light she felt, like holding a bird with hollow bones. When was the last time this child had eaten a proper meal? Her tiny body was trembling, whether from cold, hunger, or fear he couldn't tell. "Emma, you're just a little girl. How could you possibly know anything about my company's finances?" She wrapped her thin arms around his neck as he carried her toward his car. "I'm not like other kids, Mr. Marcus. Mama said I was special, that I could see patterns in numbers that grown-ups couldn't see. She called it a gift, but it scared her sometimes. Marcus settled Emma into his Bentley's back seat, cranking up the heat and wrapping her in his jacket. What kind of patterns? Emma's eyes grew bright with excitement. Numbers talk to me. They make shapes and colors and music in my head. When numbers are lying or trying to hide something, they sound all wrong, like when someone sings off key. Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. This child's imagination was incredible. And you think you heard something wrong about my company? I saw it on the TV at the library before the mean lady kicked me out, Emma said seriously. The news showed bank transfer numbers when they talked about your friend taking the money, but the numbers were singing a secret song. Marcus felt his smile fade. What kind of song? Emma closed her eyes, as if listening to music only she could hear. The banking code spelled out letters when you put them in the right order. They said, "Remember our promise, old friend?" Over and over again. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He and Richard had made a sacred promise when they were 12 years old, blood brothers building a fort in Richard's backyard. They'd sworn to always split everything 50-50, to never let money come between them, to always have each other's backs no matter what. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. No one knew about that promise. Richard and I never told anyone. Emma opened her eyes, looking at him with startling wisdom. Maybe your friend didn't mean to leave that message. Maybe the numbers just came out that way because he was thinking about you when he moved the money. Marcus started the engine with shaking hands. Emma, even if what you're saying is true, which is impossible, that doesn't help me, Richard still stole everything and disappeared. No, but that's the funny part, Emma said, bouncing slightly in her seat. The number patterns show he didn't really steal the money. He moved it, but he hid it somewhere safe, like he was protecting it from someone else. What do you mean? Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. I think someone bad was coming to steal your company's money, so your friend took it first to keep it safe. But then something happened to him before he could give it back. Marcus pulled over, his heart pounding. Emma, that's actually possible. The FBI said Richard's boat was found empty off the coast of Mexico. They assume he faked his death, but what if he didn't fake it? Emma asked quietly. What if the real bad guys found him? For the first time in 3 days, Marcus felt something besides despair. If Richard had been trying to protect the company assets, if he'd left coded messages in the banking transfers, then maybe, just maybe, there was hope. Emma, you said you could help me find the money. How? She smiled, and for a moment, the haunted look in her eyes disappeared. First, you need to buy me that bed you promised. Then we need to visit the place where numbers live, a big computer with lots of screens, and then we're going to follow the number trail your friend left behind. Marcus stared at this impossible child. You really think you can crack a $2 billion financial conspiracy? Emma nodded confidently. Numbers don't lie, Mr. Marcus. People do, but numbers always tell the truth if you know how to listen to them. As they drove through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, Marcus found himself believing in miracles for the first time in his adult life. 2 hours later, Marcus sat across from Emma in a corner booth at Danny's diner, watching her attack a plate of scrambled eggs, pancakes, and bacon like she hadn't eaten in weeks. The sight made his chest tight with emotion. When had he last felt such protective instincts toward another human being? Slow down, sweetheart, he said gently, sliding a glass of chocolate milk toward her. The food isn't going anywhere. Emma looked up, syrup on her chin, embarrassed. Sorry, Mr. Marcus. I haven't had real food since Mama died. The group home only gave us stale sandwiches and watery soup. And when I ran away, I only had the crackers from Mama's purse. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. How could anyone neglect a child like this? Emma, tell me more about how numbers talk to you. When did this start? She wiped her mouth carefully with the napkin, suddenly looking much older than 6. Mama said I was doing math problems when I was 3 that most kids couldn't do until they were teenagers. But it's not like school math. It's like the numbers have personalities and they want to tell me stories. What kind of stories? Emma took a sip of chocolate milk, leaving a small mustache that made Marcus's heart melt. Like when Mama was paying bills, I could see which companies were lying about how much we owed. The fake numbers looked angry and red in my head, or when we went to the grocery store, I could tell which prices were mistakes before the cashier figured it out. Marcus leaned forward, fascinated despite himself. "And you saw something like that in the news about my company?" Emma nodded excitedly. The reporter lady showed bank routing numbers on the screen when she talked about your friend moving the money, but the numbers were all wrong. They had extra digits that didn't belong, and when I arranged them in my head, they made letters. The message about our childhood promise. "But that's not all," Emma said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "There were other number letters too. They said, 'Danger coming Tuesday,' and 'Trust no one in uniform,' and 'Follow the steel trail.'" Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Emma, are you absolutely certain about this?" She nodded solemnly. "Numbers don't lie, remember? Your friend was trying to warn you about something that was supposed to happen on a Tuesday." Marcus pulled out his phone and checked the calendar. "Emma, the FBI raid on my company. It happened on a Tuesday." Emma's eyes went wide. "So your friend knew someone was coming to steal your money, and he took it first to hide it somewhere safe, but then the bad guys made it look like he was the thief. But who are the bad guys? And why would they frame Richard?" Emma finished her last bite of pancakes, thinking hard. The number pattern said, "Trust no one in uniform." That means police or FBI or security guards, someone who's supposed to catch bad guys, but is actually a bad guy themselves. Marcus felt the world shifting beneath his feet. Could someone in law enforcement be behind the destruction of his company? Someone with the power to orchestrate raids, freeze accounts, and make evidence disappear? "Emma, if you're right about this, we could both be in serious danger." She reached across the table and patted his hand with her small fingers. "Don't worry, Mr. Marcus. We're going to catch the real bad guys and save your company. But first, you promised me a bed, remember?" Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. "Yes, sweetheart. Let's get you that bed." As they left the diner, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this 6-year-old genius had just uncovered a conspiracy that went far deeper than simple corporate embezzlement. But he also felt something he hadn't experienced in days: hope and a fierce determination to protect the extraordinary child who'd literally appeared in his darkest hour, like an answer to prayers he'd forgotten how to say. Marcus drove through the rain-soaked streets toward the upscale Bellevue shopping district, glancing frequently in the rearview mirror at Emma, who sat carefully buckled in the back seat, still clutching her one-eared stuffed rabbit. She'd been quiet since leaving the diner, staring out the window with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see far more than any 6-year-old should. "What's your rabbit's name?" Marcus asked, trying to lighten the mood. Emma held up the worn toy. "Mr. Hopscotch. Mama gave him to me when I was born. He lost his ear when the foster family's mean dog tried to eat him." She hugged the rabbit tighter. "But Mr. Hopscotch is brave. He helps me think better when the numbers get too loud in my head." Marcus's heart clenched. "The numbers get loud? Sometimes there are so many number voices talking at once that it hurts my head. Mama used to sing to me when that happened, but now I just hold Mr. Hopscotch and tell him what the numbers are saying. He's a very good listener." They pulled into the parking lot of Children's Palace, an upscale furniture store specializing in kids' rooms. Emma pressed her nose against the window, eyes wide with wonder. "Is this really for me?" she whispered. "Every little girl deserves a beautiful bedroom," Marcus said, though his heart was heavy, knowing his mansion would be seized within days. Where would Emma sleep then? Where would either of them go? Inside the store, Emma moved through the displays like she was walking through a magical kingdom. She ran her small fingers over silk comforters and polished wood, tested the springiness of mattresses, and marveled at canopy beds that looked like fairy tale castles. "This one," she said finally, stopping before a white daybed with intricate scrollwork and soft lavender bedding. "It looks like the bed Mama described to me from when she was little." The salesman quoted a price that would have been pocket change to Marcus a week ago, but now represented a significant chunk of his remaining cash. He didn't hesitate. "We'll take it, plus sheets, pillows, everything she needs. Can you deliver it today?" "Certainly, sir." "Where shall we send it?" Marcus gave his mansion's address, watching Emma's face light up as the salesman wrote up the order. She wandered over to a display of desk lamps while Marcus handled the payment. "Mr. Marcus," Emma called softly, "can you come look at this?" She was standing before a desk lamp with a base made of clear crystal filled with colored liquid that moved in mesmerizing patterns when touched. But Emma wasn't looking at the lamp. She was staring at the price tag with an expression of intense concentration. "What is it, sweetheart?" "The numbers on this price tag," she whispered. "They're singing the same song as the bank numbers on TV." Marcus looked at the simple price tag, 127s, $50. "Emma, what do you mean?" Emma traced the numbers with her finger. 12750. In my number language, that spells HARRY. And look at the item number, 89335. That spells INTRO. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Harry intro? Emma? That doesn't make sense." "But it does!" Emma's voice rose with excitement. Then she caught herself and whispered, "Harry was what your friend Richard called you when you were kids, right? Like Harry Harrison." Marcus nearly dropped his credit card. Richard was the only person who'd ever called him Harry, a nickname from their childhood that had been forgotten for 20 years. "And intro means beginning," Emma continued. "Like the beginning of a message. Mr. Marcus, I think your friend is leaving you clues in lots of places, not just the bank transfers." Marcus knelt down to Emma's level, his hands shaking. "Emma, this is just a coincidence. Price tags are made by computers, not by Richard." Emma shook her head firmly. "Numbers don't have coincidences. If the same pattern appears in different places, it means someone is controlling those places. Someone with access to lots of computers." The implications hit Marcus like a tidal wave. If Richard was somehow manipulating price tags in random stores, he'd need incredible access to retail computer systems. That level of access would require either massive hacking skills or inside help, Marcus whispered. Someone with legitimate access to multiple business networks. Emma nodded sagely. "The real bad guy isn't just stealing from your company, Mr. Marcus. They're stealing from lots of companies. And your friend found out, so they had to make him disappear and make you the scapegoat." As they left the store with promises of same-day delivery, Marcus realized that Emma hadn't just found him in that alley by accident. Somehow, impossibly, Richard had guided her there. His old friend was alive, in hiding, and using a 6-year-old mathematical genius to communicate a desperate message. The question was, would they figure out the message before the real criminals figured out what they knew? Marcus's waterfront mansion looked like something from a fairy tale as they drove through the wrought-iron gates, its Gothic spires and bay windows reflecting the late afternoon sun breaking through Seattle's perpetual clouds. Emma pressed her face against the car window, her breath fogging the glass. "You really live in a castle," she whispered in awe. "Not for much longer," Marcus said bitterly, thinking of the foreclosure notices already filed. "The bank will take it next week." Emma turned to look at him with those impossibly wise eyes. "No, they won't. Because we're going to find your money and catch the bad guys first." Her absolute confidence was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Marcus parked in the circular driveway, noting how the mansion's grandeur now felt hollow and cold. What was the point of 37 rooms when you had no family to fill them with? Inside, Emma's eyes went wide as she took in the marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and spiral staircase that curved toward the second floor like something from a movie set. "This is bigger than the whole group home and the library put together," she breathed. Marcus showed her to what had been his daughter's favorite guest room when they visited, a spacious suite with tall windows overlooking Puget Sound, its own bathroom, and a walk-in closet that could house a small family. When the furniture delivery arrived an hour later, Emma supervised the placement of her new bed with the seriousness of an interior designer. "Can it face the window so I can see the water when I wake up?" she asked the delivery men politely. "Water helps me think better." "Ah!" After the workers left, Emma sat on her new bed and pulled out sheets of paper and colored pencils she'd somehow acquired during their shopping trip. Within minutes, she was drawing complex mathematical diagrams that looked more like abstract art than anything recognizable. "Emma, what are you working on now?" She looked up, pencil still moving across the paper. "I'm mapping all the places we've seen the number messages. Your company, the bank transfers, the lamp price tag. I think there are more clues we haven't found yet." Marcus sat beside her, studying the intricate drawings. Lines of numbers flowed across the pages in spirals and geometric shapes, connected by arrows and symbols that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. "Where did you learn to draw like this?" "Mama taught me before she got really sick. She was smart like me, but the numbers scared her. She said they made her head hurt and sometimes told her bad things about people." Emma's pencil stopped moving. She could tell when people were lying just by looking at the numbers around them. Marcus felt a chill. "Numbers around them?" Emma nodded matter-of-factly. "Everyone has numbers floating around them like invisible clouds. Most people can't see them, but Mama could, and I can too. Lying makes the numbers turn dark and angry. What do my numbers look like?" Emma studied his face intently for a long moment. "Sad grey ones mixed with bright gold ones. The grey ones are from losing everything, but the gold ones are from wanting to help me. Gold numbers are the best kind. They mean someone has a good heart." Before Marcus could respond, Emma's expression changed dramatically. She dropped her pencil and grabbed his arm. "Mr. Marcus, someone's coming. Someone with really scary red numbers all around them." Marcus listened, but heard nothing except the sound of waves against the shore. "Emma, I don't—" The doorbell rang. Emma scrambled behind the bed, clutching Mr. Hopscotch. "Don't let them in," she whispered urgently. "The red numbers mean they want to hurt us." Marcus walked downstairs, his heart pounding. Through the front door's frosted glass, he could see the silhouette of a woman in uniform. When he opened the door, he found himself facing a Seattle police detective with kind brown eyes and a badge that read, "S. Rodriguez." "Mr. Harrison, I'm Detective Rodriguez. We need to discuss the missing child case filed yesterday." Marcus fought to keep his expression neutral. "Missing child? 6-year-old Emma Collins escaped from state custody 3 days ago. We have reason to believe she might have contacted you." Detective Rodriguez stepped closer, her voice professional but concerned. "Mr. Harrison, harboring a runaway minor could add serious criminal charges to your current legal situation." "I haven't seen any missing children, Detective." Rodriguez studied his face carefully. "Mr. Harrison, that child is in serious danger. There are people looking for her who don't have her best interests at heart. If she's contacted you, the safest thing for everyone would be to let us take her into protective custody immediately." Before Marcus could answer, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, moving with surprising composure despite her earlier fear. "It's okay, Mr. Marcus," she called down. "I need to talk to her." Detective Rodriguez looked up at Emma with what appeared to be genuine relief. "Emma, sweetheart, thank God you're safe. We've been so worried about you." But as Emma descended the stairs, her small voice carried a chilling message. "You're lying, lady. Your red numbers are getting darker." Detective Rodriguez knelt down to Emma's eye level, her expression shifting to practiced concern. "Emma, sweetheart, I know you've been through a terrible trauma losing your mother. Sometimes when children are frightened and hungry, their imaginations can play tricks on them." Emma stopped 3 steps from the bottom of the staircase, clutching the banister with white knuckles. "I'm not imagining anything. The numbers around you are bright red, and they're spinning really fast. That means you're scared and angry and lying all at the same time." Marcus moved protectively toward the stairs. Something in Emma's voice, a mature certainty that no 6-year-old should possess, sent ice through his veins. "Detective Rodriguez, Perhaps this isn't the best time, Marcus began, but the detective cut him off. Mr. Harrison, this child has been missing for 3 days. The longer she's away from proper care, the more psychological damage she'll suffer. Rodriguez stood slowly, her hand moving almost unconsciously toward her service weapon. I need to take her back to protective services immediately. Emma descended the remaining steps and walked directly to Marcus, slipping her tiny hand into his much larger one. The gesture was so trusting, so natural, that Marcus felt his heart break and mend simultaneously. "She's not really a police lady," Emma whispered, loud enough for Rodriguez to hear. "Her badge number connects to the same computer systems that your friend Richard was tracking. She's one of the bad guys." Detective Rodriguez's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "Emma, you're a very smart little girl, but you're confused. Mr. Harrison is in serious legal trouble, and staying with him will only put you in more danger." "Prove you're really police," Emma said with startling authority. "Call your captain and let me talk to him on your radio." Rodriguez hesitated, just for a second, but long enough for Marcus to notice. "Emma, that's not how police procedures work." "Yes, it is," Emma replied confidently. "I learned about police procedures at the library. Real police officers always radio their superiors when they find missing children. But you haven't touched your radio at all." Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place with terrifying clarity. "You're not here officially, are you, detective?" Rodriguez's hand moved closer to her weapon. "Mr. Harrison, I'm going to need you to step away from the child." "The numbers are getting really scary now," Emma whispered, pressing closer to Marcus. "She's planning to hurt us both." Marcus scooped Emma into his arms and backed toward the stairs. "We're not going anywhere with you." Rodriguez finally dropped the pretense, her expression turning cold and professional in a completely different way. "Mr. Harrison, that child has information that could destroy several ongoing investigations. She's not safe with you, and frankly, neither are you." "What investigations?" Marcus demanded. "The kind that involve federal witness protection, organized crime, and $2 billion in missing assets." Rodriguez pulled out her phone instead of her radio. "I'm calling for backup. When my associates arrive, we'll be taking Emma into protective custody, whether you cooperate or not." Emma buried her face against Marcus's shoulder. "Mr. Marcus, she's not calling police backup. Look at her phone. She's texting someone named Victor. The numbers around that name are the darkest red I've ever seen." Marcus's blood turned to ice. Victor Kozlov was a name that had surfaced during the FBI investigation, a mysterious figure connected to several corporate takeovers and unexplained executive disappearances across the Pacific Northwest. "Run!" Emma whispered in his ear. "The back door by the kitchen. There's a boat dock behind your house." "Emma, I can hear you whispering," Rodriguez said, drawing her weapon. "Mr. Harrison, put the child down and step away from her. Now." Instead, Marcus tightened his grip on Emma and bolted for the back of the house. Behind them, he heard Rodriguez speaking rapidly into her phone. "They're running. Yes, the girl knows. Send the team now." As they reached the kitchen, Emma lifted her head from Marcus's shoulder. "Mr. Marcus, your friend Richard is alive. The numbers just told me where he's hiding, but we have to hurry. The bad guys are coming from the water, too." Through the kitchen window, Marcus could see black speedboats approaching his private dock, their engines cutting deadly wakes through the grey waters of Puget Sound. They were trapped. Marcus's mind raced as he carried Emma through the mansion's corridors, the sound of speedboat engines growing louder by the second. Detective Rodriguez's footsteps echoed behind them, but she wasn't running. She was walking with the confidence of someone who knew all the exits were covered. "The garage," Emma whispered urgently. "Your cars have GPS, but there's something in the garage that doesn't." Marcus burst through the door into his 6-car garage, his eyes scanning desperately for an escape route. His collection of luxury vehicles seemed useless now, everyone equipped with tracking systems that would lead their pursuers directly to them. There, Emma pointed to the corner where Marcus's late father's 1967 Mustang sat under a dust cover. Old cars don't have computers. The numbers around it are clean. Marcus set Emma down and yanked off the cover, revealing the pristine cherry-red muscle car that had been his father's pride and joy. He hadn't driven it in years, but the keys still hung on the same hook where his father had left them. The Mustang roared to life on the first try, its V8 engine drowning out the sound of approaching footsteps. Marcus threw the car into reverse, just as Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, weapon drawn. "Emma, get down!" Marcus floored the accelerator, tires screaming as they shot backward out of the garage. Rodriguez dove aside as they burst onto the circular driveway. "Turn left at the gate," Emma called from where she crouched on the passenger floor. "There's a service road that the GPS systems don't know about. I saw it on the delivery truck's paper map." Marcus yanked the wheel hard left, the Mustang's rear end sliding on the wet pavement. Behind them, black SUVs were already pouring through his front gate, while speedboats disgorged armed men at his dock. They raced down a narrow gravel path that wound through the forest behind Marcus's property. Tree branches scraped against the car's windows as they bounced over potholes and fallen logs. "Emma, how do you know about this road?" "I memorize every number and line I see," she replied, cautiously lifting her head. "The delivery man's route map showed 3 ways to your house, but only one that doesn't connect to the main highway system. This road leads to an old fishing camp that's been abandoned for 6 years. Marcus marveled at this child's incredible mind, even as his heart hammered with terror. "And you remember all of that from one glance? Numbers and maps are easy. It's people that are hard to understand." Emma climbed onto the passenger seat and buckled herself in. "Except you, Mr. Marcus. Your numbers are getting brighter gold every time you protect me." They emerged from the forest onto a cracked asphalt road that hadn't been maintained in years. Weeds grew through the pavement, and rusted guardrails hung at dangerous angles. "Where exactly are we going, Emma?" "To find your friend Richard. The numbers finally told me where he's been hiding." Emma pulled out one of her mathematical drawings, the paper covered with complex diagrams that seemed to shift and move in Marcus's peripheral vision. All the coded messages connect to GPS coordinates. He's been living in a place where computers can't track him. "Where?" Emma pointed ahead to where the road curved toward the shoreline. "The old Seahawk fishing lodge. It's been closed since the owner died, but it still has electricity and phone lines, perfect for someone who needs to stay hidden but keep working with computers." Marcus felt a surge of hope mixed with desperate fear. If Richard was alive, if he really had been trying to protect the company assets, then everything could still be saved. But first, they had to survive long enough to reach him. In the rearview mirror, black vehicles appeared on the forest road behind them, their headlights cutting through the growing dusk like angry eyes. "They're following us," Marcus said. Emma turned to look, her small face deadly serious. "Drive faster, Mr. Marcus. The red numbers around those cars are getting bigger. They're not planning to capture us anymore." "What do you mean?" "They're planning to make us disappear forever." The abandoned Seahawk fishing lodge materialized out of the mist like a ghost ship, its weathered cedar shingles and broken dock pilings testament to years of neglect. Marcus parked the Mustang behind a collapsed boathouse, hoping the structure would hide them from their pursuers. "Are you sure Richard's here?" Marcus whispered as they approached the main building. Every window was dark, and the only sound was waves lapping against the rocky shore. Emma nodded confidently. "The computer numbers are singing their strongest song here. He's inside, but he's scared. His numbers are all jittery and yellow." They climbed the lodge's sagging front steps, avoiding rotted boards that looked ready to collapse. Marcus tried the door, locked, but the wood frame was so old that a firm shoulder pushed it open with a sharp crack. Inside, the lodge was a museum of maritime nostalgia. Mounted fish on the walls, nautical charts yellowed with age, and furniture covered in dust sheets. But in the back room, they found signs of recent habitation, empty food containers, a sleeping bag, and most tellingly, multiple computer monitors glowing in the darkness. "Richard," Marcus called softly. A figure emerged from behind a bank of servers, and Marcus's heart nearly stopped. His childhood friend looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. Richard Castellanos was thinner, unshaven, and his eyes held the haunted look of a man who'd seen too much. "Marcus, my God, what are you doing here?" Richard rushed forward, then stopped short when he saw Emma. "Who's the child?" "This is Emma Collins," Marcus said. "Richard, she's the one who figured out your coded messages. She led me to you." Richard knelt down to Emma's level, studying her with amazement. "You're the little girl who cracked my banking algorithms? That's impossible. Those codes required graduate-level mathematics." Emma tilted her head, examining Richard with those penetrating blue eyes. "Your numbers are getting calmer now that Mr. Marcus is here. You've been really worried about him." Richard looked at Marcus in bewilderment. "What is she talking about?" "It's complicated," Marcus said. "Richard, everyone thinks you embezzled $2 billion from the company. The FBI, the media, my wife, they all believe you betrayed me." Richard's face crumpled with anguish. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to take the blame. I was trying to save the company, but everything went wrong." "Emma said you were protecting the money from someone else." "Who?" Richard gestured toward his computer setup. "Viktor Kozlov and his organization. They've been systematically infiltrating and destroying major corporations across the Northwest. Harrison Steel was next on their list." "How do you know?" "Because I was recruited to help them." Richard's voice was heavy with shame. 3 months ago, a woman approached me claiming to be from a federal task force investigating corporate terrorism. She showed me evidence that Harrison Steel was about to be targeted and asked me to help set up a sting operation. Marcus felt sick. "Detective Rodriguez, you know her?" Richard's eyes widened in alarm. "Marcus, she's not really law enforcement. She's Kozlov's lieutenant. When I figured out the truth, I realized the only way to protect our assets was to move them before the raid happened." Emma tugged on Richard's sleeve. "Where did you hide the money?" Richard smiled despite their desperate situation. "Smart question, little one. It's in 12 different accounts across 3 countries, all protected by quantum encryption that even I can't break without the right mathematical key." "What kind of key?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with interest. "A numeric sequence based on childhood memories that only Marcus and I would know. Unfortunately, the stress of the situation scrambled my thinking, and I can't remember the exact combination I used." Emma looked back and forth between the 2 men. What memories? Marcus and Richard exchanged glances. "Emma, we had dozens of childhood adventures. The sequence could be based on any of them." "Tell me one," Emma said urgently. "The computers are singing louder now. That means the bad guys are getting closer." Richard closed his eyes, thinking, "The summer we were 12, we built a fort in my backyard. We worked on it for 37 days, used 43 pieces of lumber, and carved our initials on the main support beam on July 15th. Emma's eyes went wide. "July 15th, that's 7 to 15. "What year?" 1993, Marcus replied. Emma grabbed a piece of paper and started scribbling numbers. 37 days, 43 pieces of lumber. July 15th, 1993. That's 37, 43, 7, 15, 1993. She looked up excitedly. "But you said you made a blood brother promise that day too." "What were your exact words?" Richard stared at her in amazement. "We said friends forever, 50-50, no matter what. We each pricked our finger and shook hands 50 times, Marcus finished, the memory flooding back. "We counted every handshake." Emma was already working the calculation. 37, 43, 7, 15, 1993, 50. That's your password sequence. Richard rushed to his computer and started typing frantically. "My God, she's right. Emma, you're a genius." On the screen, bank account information began appearing. Dozens of accounts in Switzerland, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands, all showing astronomical balances. "It's all there," Richard breathed. "Every penny plus interest." "Marcus, your company can be saved." But their celebration was cut short by the sound of vehicles surrounding the lodge. Through the windows, they could see armed figures taking positions around the building. Too late, Emma whispered, her small voice filled with fear. The red numbers are everywhere now. Victor Kozlov's voice boomed through a megaphone from outside the lodge. Mr. Castellanos, you've caused us considerable inconvenience. Send out the child and Mr. Harrison, and we'll make this quick and painless. Richard grabbed a shotgun from behind the computer setup, while Marcus pulled Emma behind an overturned table. How did they find us so fast? Emma peeked over the table's edge. They put a tracker on your car when you weren't looking. I can see the little red light blinking under the dashboard. Marcus cursed himself for not thinking of that. Richard, is there another way out of here? There's a tunnel that leads to the old storm cellar, but it comes up near the dock, if they have boats waiting. They do, Emma said matter-of-factly. 3 speedboats with 6 men each. But they don't know about the tunnel yet. Their number patterns show they think we're trapped. Richard was frantically typing commands into his computer. I'm transferring all the account information to a secure server. Even if they get the passwords, the money will be locked down tight. How long do you need? Marcus asked. 5 minutes for the transfers, then another 2 to wipe the local drives. A spotlight blazed through the lodge's front windows, and Kozlov's voice returned. You have 60 seconds to surrender before we come in shooting. Emma suddenly stood up, her small figure silhouetted against the harsh light. I have an idea, but you have to trust me. Emma, get down! Marcus lunged for her, but she stepped away. The bad guys want me because they think I know all your friends' passwords, right? Emma's voice was remarkably calm for a 6-year-old facing armed criminals. But what if I made them think I forgot everything because I got scared? Richard looked up from his computer. What do you mean? Little kids are supposed to cry and be helpless when they're scared. What if I act like a normal scared kid instead of a smart one? Emma picked up Mr. Hopscotch and deliberately messed up her hair. I'll go outside crying and confused, and while they're trying to figure out if I really forgot everything, you finish with the computers. Marcus felt his heart breaking. Emma, I won't let you sacrifice yourself for... I'm not sacrificing myself, Emma interrupted with a small smile. I'm being smart. Watch my numbers, Mr. Marcus. When they turn bright white, that means I'm ready for you to come save me. Before either man could stop her, Emma walked toward the front door, clutching her stuffed rabbit and working herself into convincing sobs. Please don't hurt me, she wailed, her voice carrying clearly through the lodge. I want my mama. I don't know anything about computers. Duty. Marcus watched through the window as Emma stumbled out onto the front porch, tears streaming down her face, looking every inch the terrified child she was supposed to be. Several armed men approached cautiously, and Marcus could see Rodriguez talking rapidly into a phone. She's buying us time, Richard whispered, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Transfer complete. Starting the data wipe now. Outside, they could hear Rodriguez questioning Emma. Where are the men, sweetie? Are they still inside? Emma's response was perfect. The mean man with the beard was yelling at the computer, but I got scared and ran away. I don't like loud noises. They hurt my ears. What about the passwords, Emma? Did they tell you any number sequences? I don't know, Emma wailed convincingly. I just want to go home. I want my mama. Richard's computer screens went dark one by one as the data wipe completed. Done. Even if they torture me, I can't give them what no longer exists. Marcus watched Emma through the window, marveling at her performance, while his heart ached with protective fury. This brave little girl was risking everything to save them, and he'd be damned if he'd let her down. Richard, when I say go, head for that tunnel. I'm going to create a distraction. Marcus, what are you planning? Marcus picked up a kerosene lantern from the lodge's emergency supplies. Something stupid and heroic that will either save us all or get us killed. Outside, Emma suddenly stopped crying and looked directly at the lodge's front window. Even from a distance, Marcus could see her numbers shifting to brilliant white. Now, Richard, run! Marcus lit the lantern and hurled it at the lodge's main support beam, where decades of old wood and dust would turn the building into an inferno within minutes. As flames began to spread, he sprinted for the back door. Behind him, the Seahawk fishing lodge began to burn like a Viking funeral pyre, and somewhere in that chaos, a 6-year-old genius was about to prove that the smallest heroes often cast the longest shadows. The explosion that followed Marcus's kerosene lantern turned the night sky orange and sent Kozlov's men scrambling for cover. In the chaos, Marcus burst through the lodge's back door and circled toward where Emma was being held near the front vehicles. The heat from the burning lodge was intense, and smoke billowed across the clearing, providing perfect cover. Marcus could hear Kozlov shouting orders in accented English while his men tried to regroup. Forget the building. Secure the child and Castellanos. But Richard was already long gone through the tunnel, and Emma was proving to be far more complicated than they'd anticipated. Marcus crept closer, hiding behind an abandoned truck, and watched the most extraordinary performance of his life. Emma had not only maintained her act as a scared, confused child, she'd somehow convinced Rodriguez that she was having some kind of breakdown. She sat on the ground, rocking back and forth while clutching Mr. Hopscotch, mumbling what sounded like nonsense. 7 purple elephants dancing on Tuesday, 9 yellow butterflies singing backwards, 3 green houses with no doors. Emma's voice was small and confused, nothing like the brilliant child who'd been solving complex mathematical problems an hour earlier. Rodriguez knelt beside her, frustration evident in her voice. Emma, listen to me carefully. I need you to remember the numbers the men told you, the computer passwords. Bah, passwords. Emma looked up with vacant eyes. What's a password? Is that like a magic word? Mama used to tell me magic words before bedtime. Marcus watched Kozlov pace angrily near the burning lodge, his expensive suit singed and his face twisted with rage. This was clearly not going according to plan. Sir, one of Kozlov's men approached cautiously. The building's completely engulfed. If Castellanos was inside. He wasn't, Kozlov snapped. That fire was a distraction. Find where he went. Search every inch of this property. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was getting increasingly desperate with Emma. Emma, think hard. Did the men mention any special numbers, birth dates, addresses, anything? Emma tilted her head like a confused puppy. I like numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we count to 10? Mama taught me to count to 10. Not those numbers. Rodriguez's professional facade was cracking. Computer numbers, banking numbers. Emma's lower lip began to tremble. Are you mad at me? I don't like when people are mad. It makes my tummy hurt. Marcus realized what Emma was doing. She was systematically convincing them that the trauma of the last few hours had caused some kind of regression, making her useless for their purposes. It was brilliant, but it was also dangerous. If Kozlov decided she was worthless. Marcus's fears were confirmed when he heard Kozlov speaking into his phone. The child appears to be damaged goods. Should we dispose of her and focus on finding Castellanos? Marcus couldn't hear the response, but Kozlov's expression suggested he'd received permission to do whatever was necessary. Rodriguez, we're running out of time. The authorities will respond to this fire soon. If the child can't provide access to the accounts. Rodriguez stood up, her hand moving toward her weapon. Emma, I need you to try very hard to remember. If you can't help us, we can't help you. Emma looked up at her with those innocent blue eyes. Help me what? Help you stay alive. The threat was clear, and Marcus knew he had to act. He picked up a chunk of concrete from the ruined foundation and hurled it at the furthest vehicle, creating a loud crash that sent several men running toward the sound. In the confusion, Marcus sprinted toward Emma. But as he reached her, she whispered urgently, Not yet. I figured out something important about the lady cop. Give me 30 more seconds. Rodriguez had drawn her weapon, but was looking toward the distraction Marcus had created. Sir, we may have movement near the perimeter. Emma suddenly grabbed Rodriguez's free hand with both of her small ones. Lady, your numbers just changed color. You're not really bad like the scary man. You're scared too. Rodriguez stared down at Emma in shock. What did you say? Your numbers were red because you were angry and scared, but now they're turning blue. Blue numbers means someone's being forced to do bad things but doesn't want to. Emma's voice was no longer confused. It was clear and confident. He has someone you love, doesn't he? Rodriguez's weapon wavered, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus saw genuine emotion in her eyes. How could you possibly... Rodriguez's voice cracked. Emma, how do you know that? Because blue numbers don't lie, Emma said softly, and because my mama had blue numbers too when the bad men from the hospital made her sign papers she didn't want to sign. Rodriguez glanced nervously at Kozlov, who was still directing the search for Richard. Then she looked back down at Emma with something that might have been hope. Emma, if I help you and Mr. Marcus get away, can you really see where my daughter is? Marcus's breath caught. Rodriguez had a daughter being held hostage. Emma nodded solemnly. I can see number trails for everyone. Your little girl is somewhere with lots of concrete and metal, somewhere that used to hold boats but doesn't anymore. The old shipyard, Rodriguez whispered. Emma, you have to promise me. If I get you out of here, you'll help me find her. I promise, Emma said, but we have to go right now. The scary man's numbers just turned black. That means he's done waiting. As if summoned by Emma's words, Kozlov's voice cut through the night. Rodriguez, enough games. Kill them both, and let's finish this. Rodriguez's face transformed as Kozlov's order registered. Whatever maternal instinct had been triggered by Emma's revelation about her daughter overrode years of criminal conditioning. She spun toward Kozlov, her service weapon raised. I don't think so, Victor. The standoff lasted exactly 3 seconds before chaos erupted. Kozlov dove behind an SUV while his men scrambled for position, but Rodriguez had the advantage of surprise. Her first shot shattered the windshield of the nearest vehicle, sending glass cascading across the clearing. Emma, run! Marcus scooped up the little girl and sprinted toward the tree line as gunfire exploded behind them. Rodriguez provided covering fire, but she was outnumbered 6-1. They crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at their clothes as Emma clung to his neck. Behind them, the battle was fierce but brief. Rodriguez was an excellent shot, but eventually overwhelmed. This way, Emma whispered urgently, pointing through the darkness. I can see Richard's number trail. He's hiding by the water, but not where they think. They stumbled down a rocky slope toward the shoreline, where fog was rolling in from Puget Sound. The mist provided cover, but it also made navigation treacherous in the darkness. Emma, how can you possibly track Richard in this? Everyone leaves number trails when they move through places, she explained matter-of-factly. Richard's numbers are bright yellow because he's scared, but determined. They lead that way. She pointed toward a collapsed pier that extended into the water. They found Richard crouched beneath the broken dock structure, laptop balanced on a piece of driftwood as he worked frantically in the dim glow of the screen. Marcus, thank God you're alive! Where's Detective Rodriguez? She turned against Kozlov to protect her daughter, but they outnumbered her. Marcus set Emma down carefully. Richard, please tell me you've got a plan beyond hiding under this pier. Richard's fingers flew across the keyboard. Better than that. I've been transferring the Harrison Steel assets back to legitimate accounts, but with a twist. Every transaction is being copied to FBI Financial Crimes Division and the Seattle Times business desk. What does that mean? It means in about 10 minutes, the real story of Kozlov's corporate conspiracy goes public simultaneously with the return of your company's money. Even if they kill us, the truth will be exposed. Emma tugged on Richard's sleeve. Can you add Detective Rodriguez's little girl to the story? She's being held at the old shipyard, and her mama tried to save us. Richard paused in his typing. Emma, how do you know about Rodriguez's daughter? Her blue numbers told me, and the number trail shows exactly where the little girl is hidden. Emma closed her eyes, concentrating. Pier 47, Building C, 3rd floor, room with no windows. She's scared, but not hurt. Marcus stared at this extraordinary child. Emma, you can't possibly know all of that. Numbers don't lie, Emma said simply, and everyone leaves number footprints wherever they go. I can follow them like a trail through the forest. Richard added Rodriguez's information to his data package. If this works, The FBI will find her daughter within hours of the story breaking. The sound of speedboat engines grew louder as Kozlov's men expanded their search to the waterfront. Powerful spotlights swept across the fog, probing for movement. "They're getting closer," Marcus whispered. Emma suddenly stood up, her small figure barely visible in the mist. "I need to do one more thing before the bad men find us." "Emma, what are you—" She walked to the edge of the broken pier and called out in her clear child's voice, "Mr. Kozlov, I want to make a deal with you." The speedboat engines immediately cut to idle, and Kozlov's accented voice carried across the water. "What kind of deal, little girl? I'll tell you all the passwords and account numbers if you promise to let Detective Rodriguez's little girl go home to her mama." Marcus lunged forward to grab Emma, but she stepped beyond his reach. "Emma, no!" "It's okay, Mr. Marcus," she whispered. "Trust me one more time. I know exactly what I'm doing." Kozlov's voice was closer now. His boat was approaching the pier. "You have the account access codes?" "All of them," Emma called back. "But I'll only tell you if you bring Rodriguez here and let her call her little girl to make sure she's safe." There was a long pause. Then Kozlov's voice, calculating and cold. "Very well, but if you're lying, child, you'll watch Mr. Harrison die very slowly." As the speedboat spotlight illuminated their hiding place, Emma turned to Marcus with a smile that seemed impossibly wise for a 6-year-old. "Don't worry," she whispered. "The numbers just told me something wonderful. Help is coming from a direction nobody expects." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the night exploded with the sound of helicopters and federal agents rappelling from the sky. FBI agent Sarah Chen's voice boomed through a helicopter-mounted speaker. "This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are surrounded. Lay down your weapons immediately." The cavalry had arrived in spectacular fashion, 3 helicopters descending through the fog, while federal agents fast-roped onto the pier and shoreline. Kozlov's speedboats found themselves trapped between the rocky shore and Coast Guard cutters, emerging from the mist like vengeful ghosts. Marcus pulled Emma close as chaos erupted around them. "How did you know they were coming?" Emma grinned up at him, her blue eyes sparkling with mischief. "Mr. Richards' computer program didn't just send information to the FBI, it sent our exact location too. Plus, I've been counting the number patterns of helicopter engines for the last 5 minutes. They were flying in a search grid, getting closer and closer." Agent Chen approached their position, weapon drawn but pointed safely downward. "Mr. Harrison, I'm Agent Chen. Are you and the child injured?" "We're fine, but Detective Rodriguez was shot protecting us, and there's something Emma needs to tell you about Rodriguez's daughter." Emma stepped forward with startling confidence. "Agent Chen, Detective Rodriguez's little girl is being held at Pier 47, Building C, 3rd floor, in a room with no windows. Her name is Sophia, and she's 8 years old with dark hair and a pink backpack." Agent Chen spoke rapidly into her radio, coordinating with other teams. Within minutes, they received confirmation. Sophia Rodriguez had been found exactly where Emma described, frightened but unharmed. The arrests happened swiftly after that. Kozlov was pulled from his speedboat in handcuffs, his expensive suit soaked with seawater, and his arrogant expression replaced by the grim realization that his empire was crumbling. His men surrendered without further resistance once they realized they were vastly outnumbered. Detective Rodriguez, wounded but alive, was airlifted to Seattle General Hospital. Before the medical helicopter departed, she managed to grab Emma's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my little girl." Emma squeezed back with her tiny fingers. Blue numbers always find their way home to the people they love. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in an FBI debriefing room watching Emma draw pictures while federal agents processed the most complex financial conspiracy in Seattle's history. Richard's data dump had exposed not just Kozlov's organization, but a network of corrupted officials, laundered money, and corporate takeovers spanning the entire Pacific Northwest. "Mr. Harrison," Agent Chen approached with a stack of documents. "I have some good news. All of Harrison Steele's assets have been recovered and returned to legitimate accounts. Your company is solvent again, and all criminal charges against you have been dropped. Marcus felt tears of relief threatening, but his attention was focused on Emma. Agent Chen, what happens to her now? That's complicated. She has no living relatives, and given her extraordinary abilities, there are several government agencies that would very much like to— No, Marcus's voice was firm. She's not going to be some government asset. She's a little girl who needs a family. Emma looked up from her drawing, having heard every word. Mr. Marcus, do you want to be my family? The question hung in the air, like a prayer waiting to be answered. Marcus knelt down beside her chair, his heart full of emotions he couldn't name. Emma, sweetheart, I would be honored to be your family. But are you sure? I lost my own daughters because I worked too much, because I didn't know how to put family first. Emma set down her crayons and placed her small hands on either side of his face, studying him with those impossibly wise eyes. Your numbers are pure gold now, Mr. Marcus. Gold numbers mean someone's heart is in the right place. Besides, she grinned, you promised me a bed, remember? And I really like my new room with the view of the water. 6 months later, Marcus Harrison stood in the living room of a smaller, warmer house overlooking Elliott Bay, watching Emma show her mathematical drawings to her new tutor, a kind woman who understood that genius children needed special care and infinite patience. Harrison's steel industries was thriving again, but Marcus had restructured his life completely. He worked reasonable hours, took weekends off, and never missed Emma's bedtime stories. His ex-wife Jennifer had even brought the twins for dinner twice, cautiously rebuilding their relationship as she saw how fatherhood had transformed him. Daddy Marcus, Emma called from her desk by the window, I'm working on a new number pattern. Want to see? Marcus walked over to find her drawing something that looked like a family tree but made entirely of numbers and mathematical symbols. At the top were 2 large golden numbers labeled MM and EC, with smaller numbers branching out below. What's this one for, sweetheart? Emma looked up at him with that radiant smile that never failed to melt his heart. It's a happiness equation. I'm calculating how much our family grows bigger every day. Marcus kissed the top of her blonde head, marveling at the miracle that had led this extraordinary child into his life during his darkest hour. And what's the answer to the equation? Emma pointed to a large infinity symbol at the bottom of the page. This much, Daddy Marcus, this much forever and ever. Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered in the afternoon sun, and somewhere in the numbers dancing through the air around them, Marcus could almost hear the music Emma described, the beautiful, complex symphony of a life transformed by love, second chances, and the unshakable faith of a little girl who saw good in everyone's numbers, especially his.